Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Double Take with John and Alex Sayf. I'm Alex. John, what's going on?
You already know it's another day in paradise. The NBA has been back for a while now. It's good to have sports to keep starting off our episode saying that. But the Heat, our Heat have been kind of in the middle. You know, we won a few games, lost a few games.
Rough couple of games.
Yeah, a few games that were rough. We blew that lead to the Bucks. Did not want to see that. Even though we were up 23 at one point in the game. It was incredible. But tonight, I mean, the thing I will say about those games is we weren't playing with Jimmy Butler. We weren't playing with Goran Dragic, and Kendrick Nunn missed the game against the Suns. But it's no coincidence that now Butler is healthy and ready to go against his arch nemesis, TJ Warren, who he said earlier in the season when we played him, you know, you're not even on my level. Like, you know, why are you talking trash? So we're definitely excited. And it's 7:22 p.m. right now. That game's in about 45 minutes. We're super excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a
see
great game.
Butler go up against Warren. Warren has been balling, obviously, right now. He's probably like, if we had bubble awards, he'd be the most improved player. So it's going to be a matchup.
Yeah, it should be. And I'm sure Butler's going to be fired up to play him. I know he marked it on his calendar before the season got suspended. But before we get into the episode, I just want to flex right quick that I have a new microphone, John. Just went to Best Buy today, picked it up. And John's still using those wired headphones, so just had to flex quick on John.
We'll see. We'll see how when we listen to it back on Spotify.
Yeah, we will. You know what, viewers, whoever's listening or listeners,
it still gets the job done.
Yeah, sure. Let us know. But today we have a lot of topics. It's been a week since we did our last episode, maybe actually a week and a few days. A lot of great NBA topics. Today we're going to talk about how great the Suns have been. We're going to talk about the Damian-Clippers beef, mostly with Paul George. We are going to talk about what the future of the Philadelphia 76ers looks like, and we're going to give our takes on the Miami Heat, of course, and then we'll finish with our Heat Check of the Week, our Waiters Island Heat Check of the Week. Shout out Dion Waiters, and, of course, our safe bets of the week. But before that, John, what's the first topic we're getting into?
So, obviously, one of the players, like I said, we've seen a lot of guys ball out, and you could see that this bubble, like you could do separate awards for it, you know, like MVP of the bubble, the most improved of the bubble, you know, rookie of the year for the bubble. That might be even different. But one person that has definitely been an MVP candidate during the bubble is Luka Doncic. And this has raised a lot of, since he's been hooping, he had a crazy stat line the other day, 36 points, 14 rebounds, 19 assists. The game before that, he had 19 rebounds. So he's putting up like career highs all the way around. And he's putting
up 2K numbers.
Right, literally video game numbers. So this has been starting some conversations. You know, everyone's been saying, what is his ceiling? This man is only 21 years old. He's only 11 months older than you and I, Alex. So he's very, very young. And I remember going into the season, I was like, listen, the Mavericks with Luka and Kristaps, like that. I know there's a lot of teams on that cusp of getting into the playoffs. That's the team I like going into the season. You know, you disagreed a little bit with me. But, Alex, you know, Luka Mania is going on right now. What's his ceiling? What are his NBA comparisons? Like, what are you thinking about how Luka's been playing?
You know, you just mentioned that he's 11 months older than us. His NBA comparison or his basketball comparison, I think he plays a lot like me, honestly. I think he modeled his game after me.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm just kidding, of course.
Definitely not.
But NBA comparison, so I'll just answer that one quickly because I think it's a simple answer. And we've been hearing a lot of Larry Bird being thrown out there, which honestly, I feel like that has a lot to do with him just being like a really good white player, like probably maybe the best white player since Larry Bird. I can't think who else would be in that conversation. But obviously,
just pure talent.
The comparisons are that, you know, he is a guy who's 6'8". He can pass as good as anyone. I mean, Luka's on the Magic, Larry, LeBron level of just the way he sees the floor, and he's able to utilize his size to his advantage in that, like, so much. It's incredible. And, of course, he's a guy who can rebound at, like, the other night you said he had 19 – or no, I think he had 20 rebounds. He had, like, a 20 – he had 35, 20, 19. And 10 or something. He did have 20 rebounds one night, though. Which is crazy when you look at him, and he's a guy who plays like a point guard. So I think that's why you can almost give him those comparisons. The Magic, Bird, even LeBron, obviously does not have anywhere near the athleticism as LeBron does. No one does. But I guess I would cross him. Like, he's a cross between like Larry Bird and James Harden, in my opinion, because the way he plays very similar to Harden. He has the handle, the way he operates in the pick and roll. his step back. I mean, that's the thing that struck me the most his rookie year was that his step back was just lethal. And you don't really see that for guys who are, it's their first year in the league. And he's obviously a guy who second year in the league, averaging 29, 9, and 9. For 99% of players in the NBA, that's a career year. And for Luka, that's his second year in the league. So, and then the comparison to Bird, as I said, the way he's able to view the floor and utilizing his size to execute his passing ability with his size, and obviously to rebound at, like, you'll look some nights and like I said, he had 20 rebounds. It's like, what? He's a guard. What is he doing having 20 rebounds? It's crazy.
Well, he's got skills like a guard, but he is a forward. Chooses by his size.
I mean, he's literally 6'8". He's as big as you know, he's just like LeBron size. But and I'll say one more thing is that similar to Larry Bird, you go and you watch those replays, and you're like, well, how is Larry so good? Like, how is he burning everyone? He looks so slow. And to me, it's similar to Luka. Luka's not the most athletic guy on the court, and it's not like he's even close to the top athlete on the court. But somehow he's burning everyone. It's just he knows how to get to the hoop at will, and it's deceptive. Like, it doesn't make sense almost. But one more thing I wanted to say is his ceiling. You asked me his ceiling. I definitely think he's going to win multiple MVPs. I think he's definitely going to win at least one ring. If not, he should win a few. I would bet on over one ring.
With the Mavericks, got a good organization behind him.
And he's so young. You know, he's 21. He's already top. He's probably he's definitely top 10 in the league. You could argue maybe top 5.
Oh, 100% top 10.
Yeah. But he's averaging 29, 9, and 9 in his second year in the league. One more rebound and one more assist, and he's at a triple-double.
And one more point, right?
And one more point. You're at the Russell Westbrook 30, 10, and 10, which gave Russell Westbrook the MVP on a not very good playoff team that year. So I think we could see Luka do that over the span of 5+ seasons. Dare I say, for his career. That's I'm not going to say that because that's kind of crazy. That would absolutely be nuts. But with triple doubles, you know, Luka has 17 triple doubles this season. He's the youngest player in the league. No, he's the youngest player to ever lead the league with total triple doubles. This year he has 17, and I think the next person has like 15 or 14. They're not going to be able to catch him. But you know, John, I want to ask you a question. The reason we were talking about this Luka Mania and everyone was just flipping out, because the way he closed out against the best team in the league, the Bucks, in overtime. And he had that 36.
Well, Giannis actually did foul out in this game.
Yeah, he finally did.
I want to throw it away.
Giannis has had a lot of foul trouble lately. But I wanted to ask you, John, what's the over-under for the amount of Giannis-Luka finals that we get? And I'm not saying Bucks-Mavericks because Giannis is coming to Miami in 2021. So we're going to get a rematch. We're going to get Mavericks Heat again. But
this is what I'll say. I think the Western Conference specifically is going to open up more once we see LeBron decline, even though he's somehow still playing at such a high level. He got the number 1 seeded team in the West, but I don't see him doing that for like the next 3 seasons in a row. Next season, I wouldn't be surprised if the Lakers made it to the finals. But after that, I would be, unless Davis started becoming like, you know, the number 1 dude, and he was
not happening. Like, without LeBron, they're gonna need to make a trade for another stud, or else the Lakers aren't gonna be very relevant.
So the West is gonna open up. We're gonna see the Clippers again. They'll have another window, but you never know. Kawhi could be out the door in a season or two, right? That's just kind of how he is. And then you look down the list at other teams, and like, let's just look at in terms of seeding, right? We got like the Nuggets, we got the Rockets, those teams too. Like, I don't know how much longer. The Nuggets, I will say, I love a lot what they're doing when they got Murray and then Jokic, obviously. But Michael Porter Jr. was a great steal in that draft, and everyone said at the time it was ridiculous the Clippers didn't take them. But love that pick, and he could end up being something. So they got a young core.
The Clippers passed on him. I think they had 2 picks. They passed up on him twice.
Twice, exactly. Then you also look at the Jazz, another good team with a young core. But I've seen most talented ones. I'm looking at Luka and Kristaps, and obviously Damian Lillard, CJ. You know, it's just a scoring backcourt. They're gonna need something else. You know, to win a ring. Obviously, you're gonna get 70. Like, you could get 70 points from that backcourt on any given night. But they're gonna need a little bit more to be in championship contention. So looking down, then you get to like teams like the Pelicans, the Kings, the Grizzlies. So I think, the Mavericks are going to be a clear-cut just team where I'm like, best player with obviously the number 1 offense in NBA history this season. So they're definitely the team I'm looking at. I'm calling it now 2022. We got the Heat, with Giannis, and we got the Bucks. I'm sorry, the Bucks, and we got the Mavericks in the NBA Finals. So Heat,
So
Mavs.
how many do you think we're gonna get though? Because we look at both of those guys. Giannis is 26. He just turned 26, and Luka just turned 21. How many finals are we gonna see them play against?
Yeah, I mean, listen, forget, like you said, forget it's Giannis, Luka. It's forget the Bucks. I don't know if Giannis stays with the Bucks. He certainly should, but he's gonna need better teammates around him, and I think there's no better team for him to go to than the Miami Heat.
That's right, baby.
We'll have that episode in a year from now.
Yeah, we just have a younger core, and I think the Bucks, not to get up too much off into a tangent, but the Bucks they're not built for the next 10 years in my opinion.
Yeah.
Their guys are mostly veterans. So Giannis, I think
put him with Butler, put him with Hero, put him with Bam. He loves Bam, obviously.
Come on, Bam.
Bam's the only guy who can stop him. So
that's right. So smart for Giannis.
Right. But so to answer the question though, I would probably say over under's got to be like 1.5 at least, right? Because if you say over, we're gonna see it twice. I would love to see it twice, but the thing is, the NBA is just so talented right now. The way guys are, moving from team to team to team, and who knows? Like, God forbid, Luka, after he turns 30, God forbid he, gains
don't you dare say anything.
Doesn't take care of his body. And I'm not talking about injuries. I'm just saying, you can decline.
Oh, I actually think that's the only.
I remember saying this a few years ago. Ben Simmons was young. He was like probably 21, his rookie season, and was averaging, I think, like 16, 8, and 8, something around there.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this dude's his first year in the league. He doesn't even have a jump shot yet, and he's only going to get better from here. He'll average a triple-double. And obviously, we've seen Simmons kind of not really improve his shot too much. The team has been a weird fit. So, hopefully
we'll talk about that later.
Hopefully the Mavericks, stay in good shape as a team. Their organization that makes the right moves to keep Luka with a good squad, and hopefully we see Luka and Kristaps, play together for a long time and again stay healthy. And that's what Mark Cuban said when they made that trade for Kristaps. He said, "Yeah, we want to see these guys play together for the next 20 years."
Yeah.
So
that's the thing.
Is like I'll take that lineup if those guys are healthy. Those guys for the next 20 years. I don't know what other duos I would rather have.
Yeah. I set the over-under at 2.5. Giannis
and really quick, when I went down my Western Conference thing, I totally forgot about the Warriors. Steph and Clay will be back next year, obviously.
I mean, but they're both over 30, so like for the next 10, 15 years, they're not going to be in the picture.
But technically they're in their prime. So maybe the next 2 or 3 seasons, maybe Wiggins pans out, good defensive player for them, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of young teams, John, the formerly known as the Bright Future Suns on Twitter in NBA circles, people are now calling them the Bright Now Suns because the Suns are still the only undefeated team in the bubble. Today they just beat Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City was missing 4 of their key players. It was a blowout. It ended up being a blowout. The first half, though, the OKC came out really hot. Chris Paul was like, I'm not going to let my team lose this game. He was like the only starter that was playing. They had SGA sit out, Gallinari, Adams, and Nerlens Noel was out. They were all out. But Suns, of course, come back. They win. Devin Booker, if you guys are watching on YouTube, you can see my background. Devin Booker pulled up from half court. And he absolutely – it was one of the threes that the net didn't even move. Like, it went straight down. And it was literally from half court.
It was like a free throw.
Yeah, it was insane. But they're 6-0. So, John – Can you answer this question? Because I'm starting to wonder. I have no clue how a team that was 25-39 in the first however many games of the season has been 6-0. They're undefeated in the bubble. So why have the Suns been so successful, John?
Yeah, so I think it's like a few things. I don't know. Like, I'm sure there's some NBA analysts that are pinpointing exactly why. They're watching the film and they can tell the shift in what a great coach that they have. Monty Williams has changed a little bit. But one thing I will say with these young teams is we see season to season, some teams bring back the exact same guys and for some reason are better, right? I mean, one example off the top of my head, which is a little bit of a different situation, but it's similar, is the Golden State Warriors, They did have a different coach, so Steve Kerr in there was different, and David Lee was injured, so Draymond Green ended up playing for them. But they still had the same roster of mostly the same guys and stars, but all of a sudden, Steph Curry was an MVP in 2015.
And then they won 67 games.
Yeah, in 2014, they were a middle-of-the-pack playoff team, right there, a 4 or 5 seed, lost in Game 7 to the Clippers in the first round. That was like the Blake Griffin, Chris Paul Clippers. And all of a sudden, the next season, Steph's an MVP, and this is the number 1 team in the league, and Steve Kerr's a Coach of the Year guy. So, obviously, they shifted the coach. You could directly point to that as a direct thing that was different. But sometimes I just think season to season, these things change. And the interesting thing is, like, this is in the middle of one season, right? So all of a sudden, the other day I remember they're like, the Suns have won 4 games straight. This is Devin Booker's first 4-game win streak in his career, which I thought was just like hilarious.
That was the beginning of this season, right?
No, that was just at the beginning of the bubble.
Oh, okay. Well, I remember they started. You remember they started off this season pretty hot too.
Yeah, so they were, and the reason was because Ayton was out. Ayton was out with the whole drug thing, and Aaron Baines opened up the floor. Ricky Rubio. It was Baines and Rubio. The way that having Rubio as a passer next to Booker, it was like Booker went from having. I remember we talked about this on one of our episodes. Booker went from having like 75% of his buckets like unassisted to like a lot lower. Maybe like I don't remember the exact
Well, I mean,
number,
he went from having last year he had Tyler Ulis. They had Tyler Ulis as a point guard. They had to pick up. They made that trade for Tyler Johnson. Like Booker spent a lot of time on the ball. He had to really serve as their point guard, even though that's not how he plays. So this year they've had Ricky Rubio, who's like as pure of a point guard as there is in the NBA today, and of course has helped Devin Booker a ton.
Right. So Book was like a one-on-one guy going just like ISO ball, except he wasn't running with the Houston Rockets. He didn't have a bunch of weapons around him to just go ISO like Harden, either get a bucket or pass it out to the open guy. He was doing that with not a great team around him. So he was able to do that. He also was able to have Rubio, who was facilitating for him, and Baines with like pick and pop. Baines be able to shoot threes. That was a great look for him. But now we're seeing, Ayton really, come into his own. Obviously for the year, he was doing a pretty solid job. I think it was like averaging 18 and like 11 rebounds-ish. So pretty good. But the one thing I'll say is like this bubble, the 4 months off, that's longer than an off season. So like maybe some of these younger guys just mentally are more there now. They're more mature. Maybe the pandemic has made them open up their eyes a little bit. And like, it's kind of like a new season. And it's the start of the season. And this is a team that's hot. So I think going into next season, we're definitely going to see this team be the team that hopefully I thought they were going to be this season. I thought Booker and Ayton, I was like, oh, I wasn't saying Kobe and Shaq, but I was saying, listen, 2 great young dudes. 2 great young dudes. Obviously, they're playing well right now, and Baines is out right now, a pretty good role player for him, and Kelly Oubre. So hopefully we see this young core do better going on. But what did you think, Alex? 6-0. One more thing, actually, quickly, is I also want to look at the games they played. The Heat, we were missing 3 of our key guys. The Thunder were missing a lot of key guys today.
4. They're missing 4.
And then another win was like the Wizards. So that's
so that's 3. But at the same time, like that happens. Those are games that they would have blown. And then the other ones, they beat the Mavericks when Luka had 40 points and 10 assists and Kristaps had 30. Then they beat the Clippers on the game winner where Paul George and Kawhi combined for 50 points. Right. And then they played the Pacers. The Pacers, those teams were going both undefeated against each other.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? Like, Warren is playing out of his mind. He is going to have a chip on his shoulder because the Suns traded him for cash considerations, and he's going to go off against the Suns. And so I picked the Pacers to win that game. And, of course, the Suns end up winning, and Warren had his worst game of the bubble. He actually came back to earth for one game against him. He had 16 points where he's averaging like 34 or something crazy. But my take is, well, first, I guess I just need to I'm not going to say apologize to the Suns, but I need to admit that I was wrong. When we had our first episode after the NBA announced they would come back, I was like, 2 teams that should not be in the bubble, the Washington Wizards and the Phoenix Suns. Washington Wizards, that aged well. That take aged well. They're 0-6. They have Bradley Beal's not here. None of their players are here. David Bertans isn't here. They're just a depleted roster, absolute trash. Yeah. The Suns, on the other hand, are 6-0, and they can still make the play-in game.
The Suns right now are doing what everyone thought the Wizards would do if Bradley Beal was in. Remember after Bradley was snubbed for not being an all-star, he dropped 40 or 50 the next night and was like, yeah, I'm going to take this team to the playoffs, whatever. And, and
it looked like they could get there. I mean.
And we thought so. And then obviously.
It was in reach.
He was injured. He got surgery or whatever. So he's not in the bubble now. And it's like, all right. But this is right now the Suns are being that team led by Devin Booker, right? 35. Back-to-back nights. He's been scoring a lot. So
it's funny too because what I said, I'm sure at the time, was like, for the Suns to be able to make it to the playoff, they have to go undefeated, and like the top team on that, like on the 8th seed, so the Memphis Grizzlies would have to like lose all their games. And what we've seen happen is the Suns are undefeated. Suns are undefeated, and the Grizzlies have only won 1 game. Yeah, so like, what needs to happen for the Suns to make the plan is either the Grizzlies have to lose both games. They're playing Boston and they're playing Milwaukee. Milwaukee's probably going to rest all their players in the last game. or they need
Yeah.
Portland to lose one game. If Portland loses one game, the Suns will make it. Oh, no, excuse me. And the Suns have to win out.
Right.
The Suns are going to – their next game, they're playing Philadelphia
Sixers.
without Embiid or Simmons. So that's another game that they should really win. They should go 7-0.
Right, and then they got the Mavericks, though. So my thing is the Mavericks right now don't really have anything to play for because they kind of lost too many games, I think, in the bubble to maybe get the 6th seed. But right now they're way above the 8th seed. So the thing is –
And they just rested Luka and Kristaps today.
So we might see them again.
Yeah.
We might see them rest on that last night. So it'd be crazy to see if we asked every ESPN, every just NBA fan, reporter, whatever you name it, who's the one team that's gonna go undefeated? The Suns would have been the absolute last team that people.
Yeah, probably second to last. I'd say the Wizards would be last, and then the Suns maybe.
Yeah, Wizards, Nets, and then
Nets, exactly.
But it really is hilarious to see.
Mm-hmm.
They have the Clippers, the Heat, the Mavericks twice, the Blazers. You thought they were playing good teams, and the Sixers obviously. But it turns out the injuries and whatnot, it turned out to be the way that it is, and they're 6-0 right now. So we'll see what happens with that. But they have a slim chance right now. It's still only like 6%, but I could see them getting in if the Grizzlies ended up losing too. They're not doing too well right now, so we'll see what happens.
And of course, Jaren Jackson Jr. is out for the season. I think he tore his ACL, which is like that's a dagger. And I'm really rooting. I wish that we could somehow get the Blazers and the Suns in. I guess the way we'd get it is if the Blazers lose. If the Grizzlies lose both of their games, then we could get Blazers Phoenix playing, which that's going to be the best playing game. But it doesn't look like it'll happen.
I would love to see Blazers Phoenix. That'd be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. So speaking of the Blazers, though, Alex, Damian Lillard right now in the bubble is averaging 33, 9.5 assists, and he's shooting very well from the field, 47%. So, and he's also averaging 41.5 minutes per game. So we knew this was going to happen going in. This team's super hungry. However, unlike Damian, we saw him miss 2 late game free throws with the game on the line against the Clippers. And it was also hilarious because the Clippers sat Kawhi Leonard because they were it was sabotage. The Clippers wanted to see the Blazers win that game so they can get in the 8th seed so that the Lakers would have a tougher road as the 1 seed because the Clippers obviously want the Lakers to be banged up by the time they see the playoffs. So the Clippers are
a little stealth tanking in the middle of the season.
Right. So the Clippers are handing them this game. They sit Kawhi. But guess what? It still wasn't good enough. Paul George is playing well. Marcus Morris is playing well. So now it's the 4th quarter. It's the end of the game. They're sitting these 2 guys. And who is the late game hero that hits a 3 to put the team up, to put the Clippers up? Rodney McGruder, the former Miami Heat player. So
# Heat culture, baby.
I'm rooting for the Blazers to get in and like just to have them to see something fun happen in the playoffs, obviously. But when this happened, when Rodney McGruder hits the 3 and then Dame gets fouled, it's like they were literally handing them this game.
Yeah.
And Dame missed 2 free throws, so unlike him. After the game,
right off the front rim, man. Oof.
Some words were exchanged after the game on Twitter between
Paul George. On Instagram.
Oh, it was Instagram. Paul George and Pat Beverly are talking all this smack at Damian, and Damian hit him with, "Hey, like I sent you home last year, Paul George. So like don't talk," which is true. He hit that shot right in his face, and then right after,
Let me give you the rundown. So what happened is Damian misses those free throws. Once he misses them, Pat Beverly on the sideline is screaming Dame time. Dame time. You know Pat Beverly. He's a dog. He's a guy who's always talking trash. He's always beefing with everyone. And so he says that he says Dame time once Damian missed 2 free throws. They asked Damian about it after the game, and Damian says, I see it as a sign of respect. It just shows what they expect from me because of what I've done to them. I've sent Patrick Beverly home in the playoffs. He's referring to his 2014 series-ending shot against the Rockets, and then he says,
two of those.
And then he says, and I've sent Paul George home in the playoffs last year when I hit that shot in his face. And so I think it was Bleacher Report posted that quote on their Instagram, and in the comment section, Pat Beverly says, I think it was Cancun on 3. Which is basically saying like the Blazers are they're already out of the playoffs. They're not going to be able to make the playoffs. They're just playing for vacation. They're trying to finish these games and then they can head to Cancun. So when they're in the huddle and they say, instead of hard work on 3, it's Cancun on 3. So that's what Patrick Beverly commented. And then Paul George commented. What did Paul George comment? I can't remember.
he commented, I don't know, said something to Dame, and Dame responded, "Hey, I did more with, they keep switching teams like you bum.
He
Like
said,
I'm staying
well, I
loyal."
remember what Damian said. I can't remember what Paul George said, but Damian
Well,
goes,
Paul George responded to that, and Paul George says, "I made it farther with my first team than you did."
yeah.
So I'm just like,
And
what? Like, no, he didn't.
so Damian had the ultimate diss. He goes, Paul George keeps switching up teams and running from the grind, which is like the ultimate diss. And then after that, I've seen a lot on NBA, excuse me, on Twitter, on Instagram, listening to podcasts and ESPN, whatever, that everyone's kind of crapping on Paul George now. Like, and I've heard this multiple times, and I didn't even know it was true until today. Was Paul George hasn't been out of the first round since 2014. In 2015, he lost to the Hawks. In 2016, he lost to the Raptors. 2017, he lost to the Cavs. Then he goes to OKC, loses to the Jazz in the first round. And then last year in the first round to Damian Lillard hitting a huge shot in his face. So Paul George, you haven't been out of the first round since 2014. And in those final games, he is not, like, if you look at his numbers, you go back against the Cavs that one year when he was still with Indy, he missed a game winner. Against the Jazz, he had a terrible series. And, of course, against the Blazers, they lose in 5 games, and Damian hits the final shot in his eye to score 50 points. So you're really talking trash.
Yeah,
Paul
you
George.
can't.
I know you're not talking trash, Paul George.
Dame's
like, I
better
know
than
you
too.
you cannot be talking trash right now, which is why I love to see Damian Lillard say, hey, you're running from the grind, bro. Like, you think you're hot stuff now that you're on the Clippers and you got Kawhi, who's the defending finals MVP now, and you think you're hot stuff. Guess what, bro? Anyone can do that. Huh? What'd you say?
Who's also staying quiet. So follow your
exactly. Follow the lead of the guy who's actually a stud on your team, right. Paul George.
Yeah.
And I love Paul George's game. I just don't like him off the court. So,
listen, another thing is, like, it's like when you're like, I'm just putting myself in his shoes. I'm playing 5-on-5, and the guy that's better than me, that's scoring all these points and like doing more than me, he's the best player on his own team, but my team just like better players right now. I'm like not even the best player. Like, I'm gonna go talk trash to their best player, knowing I'm not as good. Like, listen, you switch Dame and Paul George, which team got better, which team got worse? Dame, he's just better than you, Paul George. So, like, I get it. Like, you like that he misses free throws. I'd be clapping too on the sidelines. But don't go on social media.
Yeah, why are you going on the internet? Like,
don't come after
Damian's him. He's answering a question. He wasn't even taking offense to Paul George saying, or to Pat Bev saying Dame time. Like, he wasn't like, oh, Paul George not on my level. It's not like he was saying that, which he could have. Instead, he was like, I just see it as a sign of respect, like, whatever. And I guess he did mention that he sent them home, so maybe Paul George took offense to that. But it's like Paul George is showing a little bit insecurity right there, which he should have against Damian. But anyway,
right.
So on that,
just like what do you like? Stop trying to get on him. But then a little thing now that I disagreed with Damian on was he actually, so he wasn't responding to NBA players, but he responded to Skip Bayless with a tweet that Skip Bayless had, which was, let me just pull it up right now. I got it on my phone. Okay, so Skip Bayless, I'm still not buying Dame time, and apparently the Clippers aren't either. Undisputed, 9:30 a.m. to noon, FS1. So this is like just classic Skip Bayless giving his little, next on Undisputed.
His little promotion. He's trying to say something hot and provocative to get people to watch.
Yeah,
right?
And Dame responds, I have never been buying nothing about you, fam. You a joke. And after a private convo full of backpedaling, you will never have my respect. The clown emoji. So, like, all right, that's the line. Dame, I'm okay with you, like, calling out Paul George and Pat Beverly. Like, they're not as good as you. For calling them out when they're trying to, like, talk trash from the sidelines. I'm okay with it. Like, you had a point there. But come on. This is like, Skip is good in his field at what he does, and Dame, you're good in your field at what you do. Hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
Let me finish. What Skip is good at is getting ratings. Instead of dropping 40 points, he's trying to get millions of people to watch the show with Shannon Sharp. So you know what he has to do every now and again, which actually is probably more often for guys.
Excuse me, every day. Let's talk about every day and every topic.
Every day, he's going to take unpopular takes, like thinking LeBron isn't a great player and saying I'm not buying Dame time, which honestly, if his argument is, listen, if Dame's your number one player, you're not winning the championship. That's kind of, I don't know if I disagree with that, but I'm totally okay. So fine. I mean, obviously I'm sure Skip was probably way more critical of Damian Lillard, but just analyzing the tweet, he's literally promoting his show. He's literally saying, next on Undisputed, why Damian Lillard isn't that great. Like, obviously it's a debate show. So Damian, like, listen, if you're going to get heated over Paul George, fine. And you know what? Even if you're going to get heated over Skip Bayless and you're going to motivate that to play better, if that's what you have to do, fine. But to like tweet about it publicly, like, all right.
Well, here's one thing I'll say, John, is we've seen Kevin Durant do a lot of things like this, like calling out reporters and stuff like that for similar things. Like kind of, like you can tell it's just for the game. It's just they're trying to promote their show. They're trying to be provocative, whatever. And like Kevin Durant will get his feelings hurt and start saying stuff. And that's when everyone usually roasts Kevin Durant. Like we've seen Damian do this, and I haven't really seen people like I think you saying that you didn't really like Damian responding is like you're the first person that I've seen like say that. I think most people are like, yeah, good Damian. Like you call out Skip Bayless for his BS. Skip Bayless is always just pulling that BS and like good. I'm glad someone finally called him out. Whereas if Durant were to do it, we'd all be pooping on Durant, which of course I would be doing that as well. So
yeah, well, listen, I think Dame's much more beloved as a player, but again, like I'll say, like Dame. Like, I support you. I love you. You're one of my favorite players. But come on, you don't even respond to Skip Bayless. Like, I don't want Dame having that rep as like, oh, the guy who just goes on Twitter and calls out people. He backs it up with his game, but still, there's no need to get on, Skip Bayless. Like, come on. He's literally just trying to get ratings and be right. Controversy sells, so that's what he's doing.
Yeah. All right, John. So we mentioned we alluded to this earlier. The Philadelphia 76ers are now going to be playing at least for the next few games. Well, for the rest of the season, they're going to be playing without Simmons, and for at least the next few games without Embiid. They've both been injured, and now this is kind of what we're seeing is this is catalyzing the, pun intended, the process in which they probably end up splitting up their two stars. And I just wanted to bring back, John, an argument that I remember we had, and don't ask me why I'm actually, why I remember this, just because I remember a lot of the arguments we have. In 2018, the summer of 2018, we're talking about it, and I said, I think it was the year before we went to college, and we were talking about the Sixers, and I said, listen, Simmons and Embiid, they're two phenomenal players. They both have potential to be top 10 in the league for a span of the next 10 years, probably, barring injury. But I don't think they fit together. I think the best team that fits around Embiid does not include Ben Simmons, and I think the best situation that Ben Simmons can play in does not include Joel Embiid. So this is something I said 2 years ago. I think we might have even talked about it last year or freshman year on the radio show. But now that Simmons is hurt and that the Sixers have had a really awful season and they've not lived up to the hype and expectations, people are saying maybe this is the year. I saw there was a thing on Twitter that was like apparently a lot of NBA GMs have said they need a pick. They need to pick one Embiid or Ben Simmons. So, John, what do you think about that? Who would you pick? What's your take on it? Do you think they should split up? Do you not think they should split up? I mean, these guys are both very young, obviously. So,
yeah, listen,
it's kind of crazy to split them up this soon.
Two different teams. And it's funny you say that, this injury, we kind of think that now they're going to split them up. I think it's a reason to not, because now they're going to have the excuse. Same with Brett Brown as their coach. Like, oh, well, this year they were injured. We probably would have gotten it done, but like, we got to run it back because we didn't lose. It was just we were injured. So there's an excuse already there to keep Brett Brown and bring him back and to bring back Simmons and Embiid. The thing that they need to do, though, is trade Al Horford. So, Alex, you're making the argument Simmons is this running and gunning, tall, driving, like LeBron type player, and Embiid clogs the paint for him. Not a good fit. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, I still think that as a 1-2 punch, maybe it's not perfect, but I don't think we've seen it live up to the potential that it could have been. The one time we did see that
Why
happen,
not?
I'll explain. The one time we did see it happen was when they surrounded them with great shooters. Like, that was the year they got Bellinelli and Saric, like around the trade, or was it Ilyasova? Ilyasova, I think. They picked him up at like the deadline. He's like waiver wire dude. Pick him up. They had Saric. They
still got clapped by Boston that year. I guess they were young. The Ben Simmons was a rookie that year.
They were young, so like they still made it to the next. They beat the Heat 4-1, which I thought, hopefully the Heat were going to be the better team there, and they took us out. But an experienced team, and that was only like their first real year doing something. The first meaningful games they played in, and obviously they lost to the Celtics, which everyone was picking them to win that, and then people were saying they would go to the finals after beating the 2018 Cavs. You remember that? That was the team that just had LeBron. Yeah. But the thing is, I'm saying that they haven't fully lived up to it because they haven't emulated that team again. And like, you still have an all-time like great, offensive center in Embiid. Obviously, there's health and injury like questions there. But still, I want to see like them utilize him and utilize the right team around Simmons with shooters around him and shooters around Embiid. And, there's going to be some Ewing theory here, right? Like the theory that they might be better without one of these guys in the lineup. And I might say, maybe if you have shooters around Embiid and you just run the team like that, first round, who are they playing? The Celtics. Daniel Tice is not going to do – like he can't really stop Joel Embiid.
It will be fun to see. It will be fun to see Embiid go for like 30 and 15.
I would love to see. And I don't know what his minutes. If they say you're going to play 35 every night, we're not going to play you 48 minutes. But we're going to play you 35, 36, whatever. We're going to go the offense all through you because we don't have Simmons. We're going to put Josh Richardson around you, Al Horford in the corner, all these others shoot, and then just go Embiid go off. I'd love to see what type of team they look like. I probably would say the team alone with Simmons is better than the team alone with Embiid. But again, like I said,
okay.
But I'm not just because of injuries. Simmons has a better, I would say, long-term future if you're going to bet on one of those guys. But I want to see them fully maximize it with a good coach, with good role players, and like this team is just too weird right now. Like Tobias is good, but then it's like Simmons.
He's getting paid too much. That's just the thing that turns you off.
Yeah.
It's like he's getting his contract's ridiculous. I mean, they were already over the cap, and they just threw so much money at him.
Like when it happened, I was like, "What?" And then everyone was like, "Oh, this team's gonna be great," and I was like, "Oh, okay. I guess everyone thinks they're gonna be good." Like I went with it. I went with the flow.
I do remember you were like, "Why did they sign Horford?" Like that's literally so stupid.
Because it's like Horford's good as a shot blocking and shot making.
He's the anchor of a defense.
But he's also he can stretch the floor, so that's good. But him and Embiid kind of do the same thing, and I guess this year he's probably hasn't been as good of a 3-point shooter as he should have been. It's just a weird fit. So like they got to trade him for I don't know what piece, but a nice 2-guard. I don't know off the top of my head, but
well, I'm glad you asked me this because a few months ago when the Sixers season didn't start off too well, I was working on the ESPN trade machine, and this is around the time Buddy Hield was in trade rumors, and so was
that'd be a good guy.
Bogdanovich on the Kings. And so what you alluded to when the Sixers picked up Bellinelli and Ilyasova, and they surrounded their guys with shooters, and it was just the end of the season. They were rolling, and Colin Cowherd, I remember he came up with like a hot take. He's Ben Simmons is like the next guy. Like I don't care about LeBron anymore. It's Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons is gonna be the face of the league. But the last like 10 games of the season when the Sixers like went on a huge win streak, Embiid was hurt before the playoffs. So it's almost like what we see with these guys is that when they're apart from each other, they play the best. And in my opinion, Ben Simmons, his best scenario is similar to a blueprint that you'd run with a guy like LeBron James or a guy like Giannis. Giannis also not a great shooter. He has worked on it more than Ben Simmons has, and he has at least shown that he's willing to take it. And I think this year he's shooting 30%, which is still below average, but it's like enough to keep the defense honest. I think you surround Simmons with the team that Giannis has, the shooters, and Ben Simmons is going to go to work. Ben Simmons is a 6'10" player who has we're talking about court vision with guys like Luka. Like Ben Simmons, as big as he is, that's what makes him incredible. He also can do those things. So I think a trade, if you were going to trade, if I'm Elton Brand, I'm the GM of the Sixers this season. Well, first I would have to fire Brett Brown because I think Brett Brown's been the problem. And maybe I go full send and I say, listen, they're two of the most talented guys in the league. I'm not going to split them up. That's just ludicrous because in 10 years, I don't want to be like the OKC Thunder.
No, you trade Horford first. Horford has to go.
Horford, but you might not be able to trade him. So maybe that's what you do. You fire Brown and you trade Horford.
I think a team would want him, but we'll see.
You fire Brown and you trade Horford. If you're kind of being like, listen, I want to pick one of them. I need to sell high on Embiid. I just don't trust his health. I don't trust – just look the way he looks on the court. His body language is not doing it for me. He's never been in great shape. Like Embiid's a guy who can be a top 5 player in the NBA, but he just doesn't like. It seems like he almost. I think if he got in better shape and really went after, like he seems a little disinterested at times, which is like not a good thing.
But I don't remember Barkley and Shaq called him out. I think it was early in the year when he had. I think it was a game he had like 0 points, and like I think, and then we kind of saw him like try harder, and it seemed like he took that kind of seriously. But we just need to see more of that from him for sure.
But to go full circle here, back to my original point. If I'm picking one this summer, I'm trading Embiid. I'm bringing in, hopefully you can get Buddy Hield. Hopefully you can get Bogdanovich. or two guys like that. You surround you surround Ben Simmons with absolute snipers, and the defense doesn't matter. Ben Simmons can guard anyone. Ben Simmons is 6'10", 6'11". Like, he'll be able to guard the bigger guys. He'll be able to guard the Kawhis and the Paul Georges and whoever else, LeBron. So, and maybe that's Al Horford's your center. So now you're giving me a lineup of, let's say, Josh Richardson, Buddy Hield, and Bogdanovich with Al Horford and Ben Simmons. Like, that's like a nice lineup. I would really like to see that. But obviously, maybe you can't trade Embiid just because, like, he's too good, and Buddy Hield and Bogdanovich, that's probably not a fair trade. Like,
I'll give you that. I'm saying swap Horford and get those guys and get those 2-3 guard like shooters there. But if you're saying, listen, you can't get as good quality from there as you could get from trading Embiid, then I would consider that. If you can get, like, obviously, like, this team would never do it, but if you could get, like, James Harden for Embiid or something, like, obviously not, but like I don't know what a lesser version of Harden, but like a talented scoring shooting guard next to Simmons, and actually Harden is probably too ball dominant, but I guess Hield is like a good example of just a good shooter. Put him in the backcourt. Maybe how about this? Bradley Beal for Embiid. That's the one I just thought of. That works, I think.
Yeah, that'd be better. You'd have to give me like Bradley Beal and like 3 picks or something. Like, Embiid is still much better, you know.
What?
He has more value. To me, he has more value than.
Do you think the Wizards would like willingly be like, oh, straight up Beal for Embiid? Yes. I think Beal. If you look at the league, you'd rather have wings and guards on your team. Than,
that's true. And but people forget that. Shaq. Clearly, the Sixers messed up. They have, this game. That's what I said. That's why ultimately I would pick Simmons over Embiid, because this league is run by perimeter players. This league is not run by centers.
They don't have to pick right now. And I'm saying try and keep both and maximize it. Once you optimize that with the best coach and the best role players and it still doesn't work, then okay. You can, by process of elimination, look at those two guys and say, well, we have a good coach. We have good role players. So it's obviously the fit. Then you can say, but I still haven't seen that happen yet. And I think that's a fair point.
Yeah. And I guess to argue against myself, they've played in – this would be their –
I think –
This would be their third playoff? This is their third playoff, I think. Like, that's their third playoff, and they're already considering splitting those guys up. Like, I think what we really should say is that, like, they kind of their front office kind of screwed up
last year.
Yeah, they were one shot away from the conference finals. But I think there's so much pressure being put on them because this season wasn't a success.
This season
that, you know what?
Their expectations were very high this season.
Exactly. They should probably give it at least another run, because those guys are both so young, and it'd be crazy to split them up.
They got to. With a better coach, I think.
Okay.
All right, Alex, it's 8:05 p.m. Tip-off's going to be in the next minute or so for the Heat and Pacers. But really quick, what is your take on the Heat's bubble performance been so far? How do you feel about the Heatles going into the playoffs?
So I think we kind of got screwed with our first 4 games. We had Denver, who was a solid team. We had then the next 3 games were the Raptors, followed by the Boston Celtics the very next night, and then the Bucks 2 nights after. So our first 4 games are obviously, it's a bubble. We're gonna have a lot of we're gonna have a lot of tough opponents, but those first 4 games were scary to look at. So of course we ended up blowing out the Nuggets, who had some injuries. The Raptors, we really played. I guess my takeaway from that game was it was a promising game in what I saw from the team. The only thing that really, really killed us is our shooting. The first half, we were 5 for 23 from 3-point range, and we're a great 3-point shooting team. We're the best in the league. And obviously, we missed a ton in the first half, and we were still only down 4 points. The second half, we shoot a little bit better. We come back. We ended up in the third quarter, we come back from down, I think 17 or 20 or something, and that was good looks. But we ended up losing the game. And then the next game, we played Boston. Great win against Boston. Love to see the Heat beating the Celtics, of course.
Without Jimmy Butler, too.
And without Jimmy Butler, that's definitely noteworthy. The following game, the Bucks. We have no Jimmy, and then Goran goes down at the end of the Celtics game, rolls his ankle. So we have no Jimmy, no Goran. And then the Heat come out shooting. We were blistering, man. We shot like 50% from threes. We were knocking down everything. And it's not even like we've been talking about how Bam is the Giannis stopper. Yeah, Crowder was sniping shots. Too. But we talk about how Bam's the Giannis stopper. Giannis was having a good game. We were still the thing is our offense we were playing lights out. Hot. We were lights out, so they couldn't keep up. We go up, I think, 20 points in like the first quarter, definitely the first half. And of course, Unfortunately, they do come back in the third quarter. The Bucks come out strong, go on a 20-5 run, hit us right in the mouth. We end up coming back. We sustained the blow, and of course, the fourth quarter we kind of fell apart, which is when we needed a guy like Goran to close out the game, or Jimmy. Put the ball in their hands; they'll get us a bucket when our offense is stagnant.
Or they'll slow it down. Everyone take a deep breath.
Yeah,
let's stop the Bucks' momentum, and obviously we couldn't do that. The Bucks just kept building and building, building their lead, and ended up.
And of course, so that game, tough loss, but same with the Raptors loss. So those are not, at that point we were 2-2, two losses that I think games we should have won. And like, if we're at full strength, I think we probably win those games. And then we play the Suns. Of course, we're undermanned again. It came down to the end, but
three of our best players.
They're playing super hot. So I'm looking forward to tonight. Where we play the Pacers. We have our next 3 games are the Pacers, then OKC, then the Pacers. These Pacers games are very important because the Pacers are nipping at our heels.
Well, and we're going to be playing the Pacers in the next. I mean, home court doesn't matter, but I guess unless they care about the virtual fans.
Well, we could fall, John. If the Sixers somehow, I guess the Sixers are probably not going to win out or win the next few games.
No, we're ahead of the Pacers right now. The Pacers are the 5 seed.
Yeah, I know. We're tied right now. We have the same record as the Pacers, and the Sixers are not far behind. I think they're like either 1 game behind or the same amount of losses or something like that.
Yeah.
So we could fall to 6, in which case we'd play Boston first round. That's the worst case scenario. I don't see that happening, but tonight is definitely a huge game. So by the time you guys are listening to this, you probably would already have known who's won the game, Heat or Pacers. Hopefully it's the Heat. That's actually a good segue, John, to our safe bets of the week. I guess I'll just say mine because I just mentioned it. I'm going to pick the Heat. The Heat -2.5 against the Pacers. I think Jimmy's coming back tonight. I think he's going to be fired up against Warren. Warren's obviously going to be fired up as well. But this is definitely a must-win game. The Heat have had 2 back-to-back losses and losses that we really were close and we should have won. I think we're going to come out, we're going to be hungry, and we're going to get the job done. So that's my pick, Heat -2.5. John,
really quickly, we both need to say, last week, or I guess it was a week ago, I felt so good about my pick.
Oh, yeah.
I had the Mavs -5.5 against the Suns. They were doing well most of the game.
And the line went up. It went up to 6, John. You picked it at 5.5. It went up to 6.5, I think.
Because it was like, it was like the Suns, one of the worst teams in the bubble, whatever. Obviously, this was a coming out party when they were able to, beat a really good team. And they ended up winning right at the end of the game. And so, you know what? Fine. The Mavericks choked away that game.
And mine was the Bucks.
I picked so beautiful.
I picked the Bucks over the Rockets. The Rockets, have an incredible game. The Bucks were running away with it early in the game. And, of course, the Rockets come back. James Harden has a great game. He's playing great defense also. And that their crunch time lineup, they surprised everyone. Their defense surprisingly was able to stop Giannis, even though he's by far the biggest guy in the court. But so we both have 2 L's to start safe bets of the week for the next, however many, for the restart of the NBA.
The Suns, the team I bet against, ended up being the best team right now.
But this week I have Heat -2.5. John, who are you taking?
All right, so there's not many games here that I see. I guess Vegas didn't set the odds, but one does stand out that I can see, and that's Celtics -4.5 versus the Grizzlies. I hate to say it, but I think it's just the wheels are falling off right now. The Grizzlies wagon. The Grizzlies wagon, the Wizzlies, I guess you'd say.
That should be a name for the Washington Redskins. They're not the Redskins anymore. They should be the Washington Grizzlies.
Yeah, I like that a lot, actually. Yeah, Wizards and then Wizzlies. But, no, the Grizzlies, their wheels are falling off right now, and, it's not looking good for them. I do see Boston, coming out and having a strong game against that team who, without Jaren Jackson Jr., they're just offensively, it'll be tough for them to keep up with what Boston has. So I'll take Boston -4.5. against the Grizzlies in that game.
All right, John. Good pick. It's been a great show. Right quickly before we finish, we have to give our Waiters Island Heat Check of the Week shout out to Austin Rivers. He had 41 points against the Kings on 14 for 20 shooting, including 6 threes off the bench. So Austin Rivers has got we've been bringing some of our old segments back. We're going to bring back our Waiters Island Heat Check of the Week. And so this week goes to Austin Rivers with 41 points. But I think that does it for today.
One guy, though, I want to shout out for the Heat Check of the Week. Donovan Mitchell. I don't know if you saw this game, Alex, but I was watching on my phone. End of the game, it was Nuggets versus the Jazz. Mm-hmm. The Nuggets and Jazz were tied 98-98 with a minute left. Jamal Murray comes down, bucket. He was incredible during that game. It was his first game back, and he also was super gassed because it was his first game back, and he played 2 overtimes, and it was like he played like over 35 minutes. So he's super gassed, but he was amazing. Then he stole a ball in the next play. Now they're up 4 with like 30 seconds, and then Mike Conley clanks a 3. Now they're fouled. So I'm like, oh, this team they just fouled. They're going to the free throw line. They're going to go up 6. I turn it off. Like, whatever. I was watching my phone in the car. Then, like 2 seconds later, the NBA Game Time app notifies me. Overtime is beginning versus the Jazz. And I was like, what? Like, what did Dame. What did Donovan Mitchell do?
He was playing like Damian, didn't he?
He was playing like Dame. So clutch. The shots he was hitting, not only at the end of that fourth quarter that I missed when I turned the game off, but then you see it was like 3 after 2, after like steal and 1, 3-point. He was just incredible, shooting from everywhere. And it was like make after make after make to keep them in it. They ended up losing in overtime, but that was an incredible game. I would actually love to see that first round matchup, the Utah.
Yeah,
Colorado.
it would be fun. And it's funny you mentioned that. I did not watch that game, but someone who does not really watch basketball or like basketball very much, our friend and roommate from BC, Tim texted me. He's like, yo, did you see that shot Donovan Mitchell just hit? I was like, no, I'm not. I think I was texting about something else.
Unreal.
Texting me about it. I was like, oh, dang. Like, Donovan Mitchell must be going off if Tim's texting me about it.
Oh, he was incredible.
Yeah. But, all right. I think that does it for this week. We will be back hopefully soon. The next couple of days, we need to get our NBA awards show done because if we don't do it, we're going to be biased by these 8 games, of course, which we're not supposed to include.
Oh, I won't be at all.
But thank you for listening. It's been a great one. Of course, go Heat. Right now, they're probably going to smash the Pacers. Next time you guys are listening.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, by this time, you would have already known the Heat already smashed the Pacers. Go Heat. Thank you for listening. Have a good one.